Fancy intro music, yeah! Woo! Hey everybody, welcome back to your favorite GNDA YouTube channel, covering all things Star Trek Fleet Command, which means you're here for one reason. St. Patrick's Day event. Now, I'm not wearing green. You can't pinch me though, because if I were, you couldn't see me, because that's how green screens work. Technology. We're going to go over the new event launched today, give you the answers. Yes, spoiler warnings, you're going to get all the things for free. But look, if you do so, you get this fancy avatar and frame. That's worth working for the next hour, depending on how long it takes you. If you don't have a discovery, it's going to take you a lot longer. If you do have a discovery and feel like wasting, several thousand mycelium, you'll fly through it pretty quickly. How we're going to do this is go by the questions one by one. Yeah, that means you'll actually have to watch the entire video, but I'll also drop some fun little tidbits in there and maybe show you the ways they tried to trick you because you weren't really ready for the event. I will say I love the style of brain teaser type things. I hope the game continues to do more of this stuff because this is the type of thing that gets me interested and makes me want to log into the game every day. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, and with the 20 questions they dropped and the fact that it has a 24-hour limit, you don't get 3 days like when Scramble Comms dropped, so it actually makes you jump in and pay attention and get down to it. Also, not much time for this video to really take off, so should I even make it? Maybe I should turn this off. Nah, we'll keep up and we'll go through it. Let's start with number one. What is the principle of Starfleet's prime directive? Now, I would say that in the original series, which is more of what this video is going to cover with these questions, it's probably an ambiguous question, but the correct answer is non-intervention. Any species that has not made warp capability yet and is deemed lesser, you typically leave alone, don't mess with, even though basically everybody but Catherine Janeway broke that rule. I hate giving Voyager any credit, but Janeway wasn't a bad captain. But your first answer is going to be non-intervention, which requires you then go mine 1 G3 gas in Afritalis. Now, you can do that pretty easily even with your discovery, so jump in there and have at it. Now, I have to go all the way back over here to jump into question number 2. That one was, who was the captain of the Enterprise in the original TOS pilot? Remember, the pilot actually got rejected and they had to redo it, and the original captain was Pike. TOS has got Pike on it, so we got Christopher Pike. Remember, you got a new Star Trek series coming out about Christopher Pike, number 1, and Spock, which is going to be coming out on Paramount Plus, so you can actually dive into the Enterprise before James T. Kirk and their mission across the galaxy and running into weird hands in space and stuff. Weird things happened in the 60s. We don't talk about it, but they still happened. Next up is question number 3. And that is, where did James T. Kirk grow up? This is Iowa, if you've watched the original series, or if you watched even the Kelvin movie, where for some reason he decided to launch a Corvette into a ravine. Yeah, you learn that he's in Iowa. That's where he grows up. So easy one there. Weird one there. But why Iowa, of all places? Anyway, what year did the first episode of the original series air? Some of you are old enough to have watched this in person. I am not. This was literally decades before my birth, but still something to go down in history because it was 1966. So it's been almost a decade now. That's crazy. Actually, more than a decade? Yeah, more than a decade. Wow, that's a long time ago. I mean, more than 5 decades. What do you call half a century besides half a century? That thing. Yeah, 1966. Moving on to number 5. Which starship does Sulu command in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country from 1991? That would be the USS Excelsior. And he says Excelsior better than any actor I've ever heard say the word Excelsior. If you haven't seen it, go watch the movie. It's actually good. The only movie I would recommend probably skipping is maybe The Final Frontier. That's not really that good. But that was a good question. And moving on to number 6, which was, which Star Trek character was the only one who appeared in both the pilot episodes of the original series? So you had the initial pilot and then the second pilot, which ended up becoming the first episode of the series, and that was Spock. Spock is the only one. Like I said, you had Pike, you had number 1. Always forget number 1. And then you also had a completely different doctor, so that all got recast, but Spock made it through to the next level. What would we be without our Vulcans? Who knows? Zephyr Cochrane probably knows. Haha. What was Sulu's position on the Enterprise? This one was a little bit of a wrench they tried to throw at you because they list navigator first, but he was the helmsman. He was the chief's helmsman of the Enterprise. And I point to, remember, all the naval terms that they use in this series. So helmsman is the correct answer. That is F. Now, I'm not sure if it's different for every player in terms of the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I answers, so I'm giving you the correct answer. If it happens to also be F, awesome, but it is helmsman is the correct answer. Let's go on to question number 8, which is moving into a joke I just made, sort of. Which existing species discovered the warp drive first? I love that they took the time to specify existing, because if you watch The Next Generation, you find out the origin species, that seeded the galaxy had warp drive thousands of years before any of these races did. But the Vulcans were the first, and then the Klingons of the ones that are currently around. Klingons had it in a few hundred years AD, but the Vulcans, and technically the Romulans, but the Romulans split off after warp drive from the Vulcans. They were one race, now they are two. So your correct answer is Vulcan right there, which then requires you to deal damage to hostile and oppidum pulvis. Not pelvis, pulvis. Yes. Let's get into question number 9 for the St. Patrick's Day event. What does the acronym NCC in the Starship Enterprise Registry NCC 1701 stand for? It is Naval Construction Contract. So sticking to that Navy theme that was very, very thick in the original series and kind of thinned out a little bit as we got more into, plot lines about characters instead of like, is this like a nuclear submarine in space? Which actually a lot of the ship looks like a nuclear submarine in space. But anyway, that's number 9 is the Naval Construction Contract. Moving on to number 10. This one, I'll admit, caught me for a second. So Uhura was fond of singing a particular song accompanied with the Vulcan lute. Which of the following is the correct lyric? So what got me here is my first thought went to when she's singing in the Charlie X episode. Remember the kid who had like the super crazy brain power, because that's just how episodes were. And he like force choked Uhura at the end of the scene where she's singing. I was thinking of those two songs, but that's actually not it at all. This is from a different scene, and the correct is Forever is Just Another Journey, actually singing the Vulcan limerick. The key is not to get onto what she was singing, just singing with the Vulcan lute, but actually singing with Spock and not with Charlie and all the other people. So there's your fun little one that caught me up for a second. I had to think about it because none of these lyrics made sense when I was reading it. Question 11. In what system did the USS Constellation discover the planet Killer? And this is another one where they trick you, because they discover the answer is L374. However, they actually start off in L370. So if you tried to Google that and you went too fast, you probably picked L370 or going, what the heck happened? L374 is where they actually find the Doomsday Machine after it's already gone through 370 and destroyed multiple planets. Then it goes into 374, and that's where they find it consuming a planet in question. Number 12. I wonder if I should do like a little ding to like annoy everybody's puppy dogs as we're recording this. Probably. Editing is amazing. How did James Doohan lose his middle finger? I actually poked at the devs how funny this was, the different answers they came up with, like a accident on the farm or getting attacked by the family dog. Correct answer was World War II. For those that don't know, Engineer Scott, or James Doohan, was actually a war hero, a Canadian who stormed the beaches, took several bullets, actually took one in his chest, hand, legs, and ended up recovering and then becoming the famous Scotty that we know today. So the correct answer is World War II, is where he lost his middle finger. Never got to flip off Kirk, which is, a shame, really. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Number 13. Which phrase is never actually spoken in Star Trek? So speaking of James Doohan, we're moving in that same vein. Beam me up, Scotty is never mentioned. Just like Luke, I'm your father is never mentioned in Star Wars. So fun fact, if you thought they ever said beam me up, Scotty, literally never happened. Also, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer, did happen. It's funny, and that's why it's the ability of Bones, or TOS McCoy, in the game. But beam me up, Scotty, not a real thing. Number 14, reportedly the original Star Trek pilot was not aired because, now I actually talked to them, this one technically has two answers. The correct answer is it was too intellectual. NBC called it too cerebral. They also said it was too slow and too slow paced. So E could be an answer, but the correct one is too intellectual. So if you pick that one and you're wondering what's going on, just pick too intellectual. This is a one where they kind of had to be vague, because if they went too, opposites, then it'd be very obvious what the answer was. Number 15. Here we go. What is the Doomsday Machine used to break planets apart? If you thought it was a celestial body or a tractor beam, nuclear energy, nah. They were thinking way ahead of time back in the 60s. Antiprotons, which was, I'm pretty sure, like a new thing, because CERN hadn't even been built yet, and they knew what antiprotons were. So that's dope. But yeah, uses antiprotons to destroy and break planets apart. Now you got to go mine crystal in Narendra. You're welcome. And if you're pausing and unpausing this video to complete your event, I just want to say, you're beautiful. Embrace yourself right now. But you only use one hand, that way the other hand can watch YouTube and play the game. What was the primary reason that Commodore Decker flew a shuttlecraft into the Doomsday Machine? So you could argue multiple answers here, but the primary reason and the theme of this entire episode with Decker is the guilt he has from losing his crew. Now, Decker loses his crew because he wants to go into a one-on-one battle with the Doomsday device, thinking his crew will die and his ship will die. Instead, after he beams all of his crew down to a planet, the Doomsday Machine beats him and then destroys the planet, sacrificing all the crewmen. Decker realizes it was such a futile effort to do that. Terrible decision on his part, though I get the reasoning behind it. So, enraged with guilt, he takes over the Enterprise, tries to do that there, ends up using a shuttlecraft, doesn't work, and that's how we get, Decker's death. But fun episode? Probably wrong word. Interesting episode, and a lot of thought-provoking stuff. And now we have Doomsday Worms, apparently. Don't know how that worked. Why Star Trek Fleet Command how that worked. Number 17. Who is the first character to receive Spock's infamous nerve pinch, the Vulcan death grip? Well, it was Kirk. It's answer D on my screen. Yeah, it's funny, if you actually go into the history of this, Leonard Nimoy talked about it quite a bit, and how the directors and the production didn't really get what he was talking about and where he wanted to go, but Shatner did. And of course, Shatner, being the ridiculously over-the-top actor that he was, sold it to perfection. I promise you, if William Shatner had not been in Star Trek or anything, he could have been a phenomenal wrestler. He could have faked it with the best of them. So the answer is Kirk there for number 17. Getting to 18, wrapping it up here in a second. Which character brought tribbles on board the Enterprise? This one might be tricky for some of y'all, because Spock brings them into K7, and that's a thing, but it's Uhura that brings them onto the Enterprise. So that's going to be my answer H, which then required me to go mine in Tatooine. 1 crystal. Thank God it wasn't 1,000. It would have taken forever. Question number 19. We get into this one here, which is, which NASA space shuttle was named after a ship in Star Trek? That should be incredibly obvious. It's the Space Shuttle Enterprise. It was their prototype that NASA used to make sure the shuttle would work and the shuttle program was viable for re-entry and everything. It was the test shuttle, and it's actually kind of sad that it was the test shuttle and not the one actually used for missions for 2 decades. But there's your answer. And then the final question of the day, which I actually referenced at the beginning of this video, is which acronym is often found on the pipes and ducts and even in some of the Jeffries tubes of starships? Well, it is GNDN. Stands for goes nowhere, does nothing. That is, it's a little Easter egg you can find if you're watching scenes really closely throughout Star Trek, especially the original series. It's one of my favorite little things that got pointed out, and now I look for it every time I watch. But GNDN is the answer to number 20 for the St. Patrick's Day event. And now you should be finished. Hopefully you can finish number 1 in your server like I did. And I even got a screenshot to prove it, because that means I'm cool. Yeah. I'm so nerdy. I took a Star Trek quiz and a Star Trek game and won. Awesome. If you enjoyed this video and it helps you out, smash the like button, hit subscribe, live long and prosper, stay safe with our Space Cowboys, and we'll catch you on the next exciting adventure of whatever it is we're doing here. Still haven't decided what it is, but we're here and we're doing it. So, thanks for joining me.
Remember, Spock doesn't go on the Enterprise. Live long and prosper. All the best.
An even better outro than the intro. for the Empire and glory to your house.